Today we will discuss about the lateral ventricle. It is a cavity inside the cerebral hemisphere, and this one is the lateral ventricle, part of lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle, which is a cavity inside the telencephalon, it means it is a cavity inside the cerebral hemisphere. It has a four horn, anterior horn, central horn, posterior horn, and inferior horn. Anterior horn, which is lies inside the frontal lobe. Central horn mainly lies inside the frontal as well as parietal lobe, and the posterior horn, which is lies inside the occipital lobe, and the inferior horn, which is lies inside the temporal lobe. One by one, we will discuss about all the horn of the lateral ventricle. The first one is the anterior horn. It is the cavity inside the frontal lobe, and you can identify the frontal lobe by the inferiorly. You can see there is a olfactory bulb. This olfactory bulb, and just beneath it there is a olfactory sulcus, and you can see this is the temporal lobe which is bulged on the both sides anteriorly. But this anterior horn of the lateral ventricle, which is bounded medially by the septum pellucidum and part of the fornix, the roof which is formed by the corpus callosum, lateral wall and floor which is formed by the caudate nucleus, as well as anterior wall which is formed by the genu of the corpus callosum, and floor part of the rostrum of the corpus callosum. So this is the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. I will show you the other structure inside the frontal lobe. This is the internal capsules, and just lateral to the internal capsule you can see this is the lentiform nucleus. So this is about the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. This is the central horn of the lateral ventricle. So it mainly passes from the brainstem and midbrain. Here also you can see this is passes from the mammillary body. This is the part, here there is a brainstem. But in coronal section we can see the central horn of the lateral ventricle medial wall, which is formed by the septum pellucidum, and this is the column of the fornix. Roof which is formed by the corpus callosum. Above to it you can see this is the branches of the anterior cerebral artery, and the floor, which is the floor and lateral wall, which is the formed by the part of the caudate nucleus. This is the caudate nucleus, body of the caudate nucleus, thalamostriate vein, stria terminalis, and this is the thalamus. So this is the boundary of the central wall of the central part of the lateral ventricle. Medial wall by the septum pellucidum and fornix, column of the fornix. Roof which is formed by the body of the corpus callosum. Above to it you can see there is a branches of the anterior cerebral artery, and floor and lateral wall which is formed by the caudate nucleus, thalamostriate vein, stria terminalis, and this is the thalamus. Just lateral to the thalamus you can see this white fiber. It is the posterior part of the internal capsule. Just lateral to it this is the lentiform nucleus, and this medial part it is the triangular, it is the globus pallidus, and lateral plus it is the putamen. Just lateral to it here there is a grey matter, it is called the claustrum, and between the claustrum and the lentiform nucleus white fiber it is called the external capsule. Outer side of the claustrum you can see there is a other white fiber, it is called the extreme capsules, and this is the insula. And here you can see this is the lateral sulcus, and inside the lateral sulcus you can see the branches of the middle cerebral artery, and this is the thalamus. You can see this is the thalamus. Mainly it makes the floor of the central part of the lateral ventricle. So the central part of the lateral ventricle, medial wall by the septum pellucidum, column of the fornix, roof by the corpus callosum, floor and lateral wall by the part of the caudate nucleus, thalamostriate vein, stria terminalis, and thalamus. Posterior horn of the lateral ventricle, which is lies inside the occipital pole, and it is mainly pointed. You can see there is a medially, here you can see this is the calcarine sulcus, this is the calcarine sulcus on the both the side, this is the calcarine sulcus. This is the splenium of the corpus callosum midline, which is connecting. This splenium which is extending medially, it is makes the fiber of the forceps major, and laterally it is the continuous as a tapetum fibers. So the floor and medial wall, which is formed by the projection inside the medial wall, which is medial wall, and floor, which is formed by medial wall and floor, which is formed by the fiber of the continuation of the splenium. It is the forceps major, and below there is a calcarine sulcus. There is an elevated area. It is called the calcarevis. Roof and lateral wall, which is formed by the fiber of the tapetum, which separate the optic chiasma. It separate the optic radiations. So this is the lateral wall, and the roof, which is formed by the fiber of the tapetum. It is a continuation of the splenium of the corpus callosum, and this is the optic radiations. Inferior horn, which is lies inside the temporal lobe. This is the temporal lobe, you can see from the front side, and this is a lateral sulcus. And here you can see just on the upper aspect, this is a inferior horn of the lateral ventricle, which is below, which is lined by the hippocampus, and roof, which is formed floor, which is formed by the hippocampus, and roof, which is formed by the medialis stria terminalis, tail of the caudate nucleus, and laterally fiber of the tapetum, which makes the roof of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricles. So these are the four horn of the lateral ventricle: anterior horn, central horn, posterior horn, and inferior horn. So hope you enjoy and understand the lecture of the lateral ventricle. Thank you.